So, do you come here often?
No,
Oh, okay. Alright. Quite the rod you've got there.
we didn't really have to talk, to be fair.
Okay. Hello and welcome to Banana Jam Games. As usual, I am Ellis, and today we wanted to talk about Strange Shores, a desktop fishing game. Now, as you may know, Fire Me, I Insist released on Monday. It is currently on sale for $1.99, and whilst it hasn't hit the top sellers mark, we do still think it's an enjoyable experience for an hour or two, and that it is priced to reflect that. So, if you wanted to have a break from battle passes and any other shite that seems to get released, please go and check it out on Steam. We also now have a Kickstarter for the game in question today, so if you wanted to check that out either now or after the video, please do. And if you can support us in any way, that would be massively appreciated. You can either pledge just a standard donation, or we have several different reward tiers for you to actively impact the game and put something in yourself. Well, more to direct us to put it in, but regardless, it's an option. So without further ado, we will get into the first week of development on Strange Shores. Now, with any game, you need to start off with the design aspect. And as usual, we wanted to make a game that we would play, something that we would enjoy ourselves. And after many Zoom or Teams meetings, James often found himself getting quite bored. And similarly, if I was in a position where I had to sit and wait in an hour's meeting till the last 10 minutes to give my quarterly sales report or whatever shit they were asking for, I would also probably get quite bored and distracted easily. And this is where Strange Shores was first conceived. It is meant to be a passive game that you keep in the corner of your screen, usually when you're doing something else, but by all means you can just play it. That would allow you to fish passively and collect different fish and objects. Simultaneously, James had listened to me ranting and raving one night about how I would absolutely love to make a beautiful game, and so we started to conceive how we were going to make this game, what features it was going to have, and what the ultimate pull was going to be for people to play it. So we decided we wanted somewhere around 100 fish and objects to collect, and that the game would run on a day-night cycle. This, however, has now been removed, but we will still be including the parts of it that we started working on. We also decided that we were going to take on an ambitious task that, quite frankly, terrified us, but that we felt was going to be quite an interesting feature that would set us apart from other desktop fishing games, and would also build our experience in a certain area that we could use in future. This feature was multiplayer, and again, we'll be getting on to how we progressed with that. So, James started by pulling all of the strings he had. We had somebody who did the background for us to give us a nice, cozy template to begin with, and then the animation for this background was done by Freddie Mercury, who I have previously mentioned supported with some of the character art for Fire Me I Insist. I say supported, he just did some of the character art, full stop. And after this, James got straight into coding, progressing ridiculously quickly, if I might add. The first thing he did was start by getting the window feature correct. Now, we wanted a fully customizable experience for when you are fishing, and as such you can move the window from every corner of your screen to any other at a moment's notice. Further to this, you can also resize the window and have it as big or as small as you want, potentially just enlarging it when you do catch a fish or hook a fish. Whilst waiting for the background to be completed, James also started to work on some of the additional generations that he was going to need. At the time, we were still developing a day-night cycle, so we started to work on implementing clouds that would generate in the game's window, along with having a sky color change system and a fade that again would help create the day-night cycle that we were aiming for. After this, he started to work on the one design element that we hadn't quite nailed down. Now, this was the fishing mechanic itself, and as you can imagine, that's quite important in a fishing game. We didn't want anything too complex, as it is meant to be a passive fishing game that you have in the corner of your screen. We don't want people trying to drag their mouse all over the place during a meeting, almost looking like they're trying to wrestle away the need for a poo. So we took some inspiration from other fishing games and made it as simple as possible, with it being a certain number of clicks within a certain time frame. So James started to work on this, adding a bar to the side of the screen that would tell you all the information you needed, having it run down to show the time that you had to catch the fish, and then also simultaneously right next to it having a fish counter that would tell you how many clicks you needed to catch the fish. This scales with rarity depending on the fish or object that you've managed to hook. Now, after all of this was implemented, James then also created the animation for the fish to appear on the screen after you've caught it. We wanted it to flash up quite big so that you actually got to see the work that we put into the art for all of the different fish and whatever name it came up with. Now, as is standard practice at Banana Jam Games, not all of these catches are going to be your bog standard fish. Some of them will be objects of a troubling nature, some of them hopefully of a funny nature, and some of them might just flat out be people mixed with fish. James then also went on to create the character that was going to sit in front of you on the screen with his fishing rod, and started to animate him for the various different states in the game, whether he was idle, hooking a fish, or he had just caught one. James managed to achieve all of this in a very short amount of time, but the one feature that we had decided that was going to set us apart from other desktop games was multiplayer. Now, obviously it's not going to be competitive, there will be no ranked, this is not Jerkmate, but the hope is that essentially you can sit there with your friends passively, whether you are in a Discord call together, or if you are just essentially socializing whilst you do work by having the two of you sat in the corner of the screen together, enjoying a nice calm fishing experience. We also decided at this point that we were going to add emojis into the game so that you could communicate with your friends, even if you're not necessarily in a call with each other. And that any catches that you would make would be visible to your friends, and any catches they make would be visible to you. As a way of almost sharing your achievements and inspiring others to try harder when looking for that rare catch. But there was a problem with multiplayer, as you could potentially expect. It is not easy to put into a game, and also in a lot of cases it is not cheap either. If we wanted to pay for a server, then we would almost need to guarantee revenue, and if we wanted to make sure that the multiplayer was available for the foreseeable future, then we also needed to make sure it had a regular income stream, both of which we can't necessarily guarantee. Whilst the game is very different from Fire Me, I insist, if we go off the statistics for the release of that game, we could potentially run a server for 3 days. However, by the same token, if the game was popular enough, then we would have enough money to run the servers a bit longer. But even worse than that, if everybody did buy the game all of a sudden, and we made a hefty amount of cash, that would be fantastic. But there's no saying that that cash wouldn't run out over a certain number of months or even years, and that the multiplayer would have to be shut down. And then essentially the unique selling point of our desktop game would be worthless. So we needed to find a cost-effective solution that could run regardless almost of the game's success, to ensure that one of the features that we were quite adamant on being in the game was available regardless of how much interest and uptake and sales there were. So we started to shop around. We had a few different ideas, we found a few different networking sites, all costing various different things. We were quite adamant that we didn't want microtransactions in our game, even though this would have been one of the funding options that would have potentially kept the game running on a trusted multiplayer networking service for longer. One of the ideas James had was that he was going to turn some Raspberry Pis into servers, and not the Raspberry Pi of the culinary world, but the Raspberry Pi microcomputers that James seems to have an unhealthy obsession with. This would again still have running costs technically, with the cost of electric still being somewhat pricey, and also then it having a reliance on either myself or James's internet connection, which might not always be a guarantee that it was going to work. And even if it did work, we don't want to sacrifice our internet speed. I certainly don't. So this option seemed a little tenuous. We did find another service that would essentially give us 10,000 requests and then charge us going forward from that. However, as James started to get the multiplayer working, all of the testing that we did was bringing down the number of requests that we had free quite quickly. And so running this on a larger scale for people all across the world to play Strange Shores with their friends was going to cost us quite a bit of money, which again was the main crux of the issue. In the end, we did find a service that was much more viable, allowing us to send simple requests to and from different people. During the testing phase, James also did some optimization. Given that the game is not competitive and that it doesn't require instant reactions to various in-game events, we could essentially ping information back and forth and refresh the server a lot less often than other games like Call of Duty might need you to. And so James started to work on getting this to work in unison with our game and closed the book on development for that week of Strange Shores. During this time, I was still doing various marketing bits for Fire Me I Insist, but beyond that, I had started doing the different artwork for the fish. Whilst I had enjoyed doing the artwork for Fire Me I Insist, it was clear that I was not as good as I could be. And we knew that given the nature of this game, I could spend a lot more time on the individual pieces of artwork and get them to a quality that we had not produced as of yet. After a bit of back and forth with James about the different pixel sizing and resolution that I could use for the pixel art, we eventually settled on a size that seemed to allow us to go into enough detail to still make the game look pretty. And I started putting together various different fish, getting James to go back and check the quality to make sure that we had a standard that we could maintain going forward. And that was pretty much everything we had done in the first week. Now, from a game design perspective and just an overall game development perspective, we seem to have learned quite a few things from Fire Me I Insist. And as such, making Strange Shores has been a far more streamlined process so far. We are now technically probably in week 3 or 4 of development, and so there will potentially be maybe 2 videos in 1 week so that we can catch up to where we actually are with the development of the game. Now we know that it's not necessarily a massive game, and so that it shouldn't really take a ridiculous amount of time to complete, and we are hoping to release the game in the summer if possible. But regardless, between me and James, we are working far better than we did with Fire Me I Insist. Things such as Steam and marketing are easier to us now than they were previously, and also the type of game that Strange Shores is much more attractive than Fire Me I Insist is in 2025 to a general gaming audience. Now, if you want to keep up to date with any of the goings on with Strange Shores, the development process, we're aiming to have a video out every week detailing the different things that we've implemented and what we've gotten ready in the game. Now, you can also join us on Discord because we are desperate for some real people there, where you can ask us various different questions about game development if you'd like to know, if there's any way that we can help. But if you are just dying to get Strange Shores out as quickly as possible, or even better, you want to contribute to the game and have a custom background or a custom fish/object put into the game, please head on over to Kickstarter and support us in any way you can. There are different tiers for those things just mentioned, or if you can donate any money at all, it would be massively appreciated. And there still might be some things that you can access for a lower price. But having said all of that, we are hoping for a much smoother development process than Fire Me I Insist, and hopefully a better turnout when it comes to sales. There is a blog on Kickstarter detailing my opinions on game development and Strange Shores in particular, and what I hope that it does for Banana Jam Games and allows us to do in the future. But if you just want to see development log updates, then by all means subscribe to our channel here on YouTube, and you should see weekly videos detailing the trials and tribulations we are going through to make this game a reality. Beyond that, that is pretty much everything for the first week of development of Strange Shores, a desktop fishing game, and we hope to see you again. Cheers, bye!